All right, in this video, we are going to work through this example. It says, write a Java class that calculates the volume of a right circular cylinder, the volume V of a right circular cylinder in terms of the radius of its base, R, and its height, H, is V equals pi R squared H. Declare and initialize 6 variables that contain the radii and height of 3 cylinders and calculate the volume of the 3 cylinders. Okay, so first we're going to kind of do this without using methods, and then we are going to take that and break it into some other methods. Okay, so public static void main string args for the main method header. Okay, I'm just going to use scanner to get my. Let's see. Wait. Okay, it says declare and initialize. So it doesn't say we have to get input from the user. Okay, so radius 1 equals 4.2. Double height 1 equals 3.6, and I'm just making up numbers here. Declare and initialize 6 variables, radii and heights of 3 cylinders. Calculate the volumes. Okay, so I'm just going to do it for 1 first. So double volume 1 equals, all right, and it's pi, so math dot pi times the radius squared, so that's math dot pow radius 2.0 times height, and I'm calling it height 1, so I guess I need to change those. Okay, and let's just print this out. System.out.println volume 1. All right, let's test that. Actually, we kind of should have been compiling and testing it along the way. You can see that when I compile it and hit save, you can see that it is not putting the file name in here, so that means I've done something wrong. There's some mistake in there, and I can see a mistake right here that I forgot the semicolon, and that looks better. Okay, so far so good. All right, well, we're calculating this out. So now let's make this method this a little bit better. So the radius, the volume of a cylinder with radius blank units and height .2 F units is blank cubic units, and then %n to go to the new line. All right, and then we want radius 1, height 1, volume 1. Okay, so that looks like a good message. Okay, that looks fine. And now they want us to do this again multiple times, which is not good, but I'm just going to go ahead and show you. If you find yourself doing this, right, then then that is probably a sign that you should be splitting this off into a method. So I'm gonna just redo everything that I did here, and so you'll notice again it's kind of ridiculous. I'm gonna have to change this stuff everywhere, right? Here and here and here. I'm gonna change this to 3, 3, and 3. And I hate doing it this way, but just to show you, because at first you might not realize, why it's not great to do it this way. And let's change these values. Okay. All right, and so you can see I've complied with what it says. It just says calculate these 6 things, right? And there's not. It wasn't too bad, but let's say, what if you had 1,000 of these to do instead of just 3 of them? Okay, so that would be, a lot more changing things and copying and pasting, in the program. So, and you basically just be repeating yourself over and over again. So, like I said, when you do things like that, then what you want to do is consider putting those things that you're repeating over and over again into a method. All right, and so that's exactly what I'm going to do here. I am going to start another method down here, okay? And I am going to add another method, and the purpose of this method is going to be to compute and print the volume, okay? So that is going to be the purpose of this method. And then what I'm going to do is just to take the code that I already have for computing and printing the volume and put it in this method. Now later on we will be splitting the printing part off of the computing part again. So we'll be refining this like even more later. But in this first example, then I'm just going to take this out and put it in its own method. Okay, this is the part that I'm repeating over and over again. So here I am going to remove these numbers on the variables because I'm not going to need them anymore. It's only going to be 1 radius, 1 height, and 1 volume in here. Okay. So I'm going to remove those. So now the thing is, I have to consider, right, for the time being, all of our methods are going to be public and static until we get to chapter 5. And for the time being, until we get to value methods in the same chapter, we're going to have void as the type. So what you need to do then after the name is figure out, okay, what is the input? What information does this method need to do its job, which is to compute the volume and print the message out? And the answer is that it needs the radius and the height at the very least, right? That's what this needs. And so what you would do is go up here and add a parameter. Okay, in order to do its job, this method needs to know what the radius is, it needs to know what the height is. All right? And so now I can go back and get rid of this code that I had here. Okay, so you can see now I'm starting to reuse the code that I wrote before. All right, remember when you add a method into your program, that doesn't mean that it's automatically executed, right? So You can see when I run it now, I get no output at all, right? That's because I moved the calculation and printing part into a method. And so now in order to use that method, I must give a method call, right? So how do you call a method? Well, first off, you put the method's name. So I'm going to put here compute and print volume, and then open and close parentheses and a semicolon at the end. And then I need to go look at the method header down here on line 18, and I need to look at the parameter list. First off, I need to know how many parameters are in there. There's two, one here and one here. And then I need to supply a value, right, for each one of those parameters. So here I'm going to give it radius 1 and height 1. Okay. So what will happen is that the when we call this method, the value for radius 1, which is 4.2, will get sent here, and the value for 3.7 will get sent here. All right. And so now you can see that we get one line of output, and we'll have to do that each of those 3 times. Okay. For radius 2, height 2, radius 3, and height 3. And then we get our 3 messages, like so. Okay. So now, like I said, imagine that you had to do this 1,000 times, right? Make 1,000 different calls, and then, your boss looks at what you've done and says, "Hey, that's great. The only thing is I'd really like, that to be rounded to 3 decimal places instead of 2 decimal places. I want the volume rounded to 3, let's say." So before, the way we had it before originally, right, you'd have to go back and change 1,000 different lines in your program if you did it the other way, right? And that's ridiculous, right? Whereas this way, even if you had 1,000, right, you could just change it right here. Say, okay, you want the volume to 3 decimal places. Well, there you go, right? And that would change it on all 1,000 lines that you had. Okay. So this way of organizing things is a lot better, right, than putting your entire code into one single method. All right, yeah. All right, that's it for this example.